Hey there movie lovers, welcome back to Rocky Watches Movies. Today we're heading back to detention with the iconic 1985 classic The Breakfast Club. Directed by John Hughes, this coming-of-age favourite brought together 5 very different high school students and turned a simple Saturday into one of the most unforgettable stories of the decade. But how much do you really know about what went on behind those school doors? So grab your lunch, find a seat in detention, and let's break the rules with 20 things you never knew about The Breakfast Club. Writer and director John Hughes' efficiency has become the stuff of Hollywood legend. The Breakfast Club is a perfect example. He reportedly completed the first draft of the script in just 2 days, over the July 4th weekend in 1982. Pouring his ideas onto the page in a remarkably short burst of creativity. Despite that rapid start, the screenplay didn't move straight into production. Instead, it sat untouched in a drawer for several years, while Hughes focused on other projects. At one stage, he had hoped to bring The Breakfast Club to the screen before 16 Candles, but the studio decided to reverse the order. That decision proved pivotal. The success of 16 Candles established Hughes as a leading voice in teen cinema, giving him both the credibility and creative freedom to finally make The Breakfast Club the way he envisioned. Unlike most productions, The Breakfast Club broke with the usual practice of shooting scenes out of sequence. With the story confined to a single location and unfolding over the course of one day, it allowed for the rare luxury of filming in chronological order. This approach closely mirrored the film's real-time narrative and proved invaluable for the cast. By progressing through the story as their characters did, the actors were able to track the gradual shifts in emotion and perspective more naturally. This classic coming-of-age film begins with a memorable quote from David Bowie's Changes, instantly establishing its themes of identity and personal growth. The choice, said to have been suggested by Ali Sheedy, proves remarkably fitting, capturing the spirit of a film that explores how 5 teenagers begin to see beyond their labels. As the film introduces the basket case student through voiceover, we're ushered into the guidance counsellor's office. A key detail lies on the desk. A copy of I'm OK, You're OK, a popular self-help book from the 1960s. This subtle element hints at the film's exploration of communication and understanding, themes the guidance counsellor's office embodies. The casting of the film went through several intriguing changes before settling on its lineup. Molly Ringwald was originally cast as Allison, but successfully persuaded Hughes and the studio to recast her as Claire. Emilio Estevez was initially set to play John Bender, but when John Hughes struggled to find the right actor for Andrew Clark, he reassigned Estevez to the role. With Bender suddenly vacant, Nicolas Cage was considered, but the production simply couldn't meet his salary demands. Another version of the cast nearly saw John Cusack take on Bender, with his sister Joan Cusack in the running for Alison Reynolds. In the end, Hughes opted for a different direction, ultimately casting Judd Nelson and Ali Sheedy after auditions in Los Angeles. The role of the janitor also saw a notable change. Rick Moranis was originally attached, but departed due to creative differences. He apparently wanted to portray the character as an exaggerated Russian stereotype. The part instead went to John Kapelos, whose understated performance became a memorable element of the film. Meanwhile, the role of Claire Standish attracted a strong pool of talent, with Robin Wright, Jodie Foster and Laura Dern all auditioning. Puberty doesn't pause for production schedules, and Anthony Michael Hall proved just that during filming. Over the course of the shoot, he experienced a noticeable growth spurt, creating a subtle continuity challenge for the filmmakers. The issue was cleverly managed behind the scenes, ensuring it never became a distraction on screen. As Judd Nelson, who played John Bender, later recalled, Hall began filming a few inches shorter than him, but had overtaken him in height by the time production wrapped. Adding a touch of real-life authenticity to the film, Brian Johnson's mother and sister are portrayed by members of Anthony Michael Hall's own family. His mother, Mercedes Hall, and his younger half-sister Mary appear on screen, lending the scene an extra layer of natural chemistry. The Breakfast Club features one of its most powerful moments in the confessional scene, much of which emerged through improvisation. As the characters reveal the reasons behind their detention, their shared vulnerability forges an unexpected bond and produces some of the film's most memorable lines, including the haunting, "When you grow up, your heart dies." Director Hughes, renowned for his instinctive understanding of teenage life, deliberately encouraged this natural, free-flowing approach. Cinematographer Tom Delruth later recalled that Hughes wanted them to feel free, creating an atmosphere where the actors could shape their dialogue in ways that felt true to their characters. While each performer already knew why their character was in detention, they were given the freedom to express themselves in their own words, resulting in a scene that feels strikingly real. Filming wasn't without its tensions behind the scenes. John Hughes reportedly clashed with Judd Nelson over his intense method-style approach to playing John Bender. Nelson often stayed in character between takes, which created friction on set, particularly with Molly Ringwald. While some, including Paul Gleason, who played Principal Vernon, viewed this as a sign of Nelson's commitment, it tested Hughes's patience to the point where he considered replacing him. A blink and you'll miss it detail appears during the opening moments of the film. A plaque for Shermer High's Man of the Year briefly comes into view. Etched onto the 1969 award is the name Carl Reed, the very same Carl who later turns up as the seemingly unremarkable janitor. Finding the right voice for the Breakfast Club theme song proved unexpectedly difficult. Despite its future success, Simple Minds were not the producer's first choice to record Don't You Forget About Me. The track was initially offered to several artists, including Brian Ferry and Billy Idol, both of whom turned it down, although Idol would later record his own version. Even Chrissie Hynde, who was married at the time to Simple Minds frontman Jim Kerr, initially declined involvement. However, Hynde recognised the song's potential and encouraged the producers to approach the band directly. That decision led to Simple Minds recording the track, creating an iconic pairing that helped define the film and secure the song's lasting place in pop culture history. As is often the case in the films of John Hughes, even the smallest details carry hidden meaning. In The Breakfast Club, the car license plates offer a clever series of visual clues. When Brian's mother drops him off for detention, her plate reads EMC2, a playful reference to Albert Einstein's famous equation. It subtly reinforces Brian's identity as the group's brain. Later, Andrew's father arrives in a car bearing the plate Ohio ST, a clear nod to Ohio State University. Their brief conversation about a blown ride hints at Andrew's sporting ambitions, likely tied to a potential wrestling scholarship. These license plate Easter eggs are a recurring touch in Hughes's work, rewarding attentive viewers with an extra layer of storytelling. Even the famously private John Hughes couldn't quite resist stepping in front of the camera. Despite a reputation for avoiding the spotlight, he makes a fleeting blink and you'll miss it cameo as Brian's father at the end of the film. In 1985, several members of the so-called Brat Pack made a striking transition on screen. Emilio Estevez, Judd Nelson and Ali Sheedy all played high school students in The Breakfast Club, only to appear as recent university graduates later the same year in St Elmo's Fire. It's a neat contrast that highlights just how fluid Hollywood casting could be, particularly for young actors at the time. Interestingly, Nelson, who embodied teenage rebellion on screen, was actually the oldest of the trio at 26 during filming. An early draft of the script included a far more surreal flourish that never made it to the screen, an elaborate dream sequence. In this imagined moment, Alison envisions her classmates transformed into exaggerated versions of their identities. Andrew becomes a ravenous Viking, Bender a chained prisoner, Claire a blushing bride, and Brian an astronaut, while Alison herself appears as a mysterious vampire. The sequence would have added a striking, almost fantastical layer to the story, visually amplifying the stereotypes each character represents. In the end, however, John Hughes chose to keep the film grounded in realism. Even a filmmaker as assured as John Hughes wasn't without occasional second thought. Reflecting on The Breakfast Club years later, he pointed to one small but telling moment he wished he could change. The use of a dramatic glass-shattering effect during a scene involving Emilio Estevez's character, Andrew Clark. The effect was intended to heighten the emotional intensity of the moment, punctuating Andrew's internal turmoil in a more stylised way. However, Hughes later felt it clashed with the film's otherwise grounded and naturalistic tone. John Hughes was never shy about returning to familiar territory. Although The Breakfast Club is set in the fictional Shermer High School, the location may feel strikingly familiar. Hughes reused the same setting across several of his classics, including Weird Science, 16 Candles and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, creating a shared universe that subtly links his films together. The Breakfast Club was once envisioned as the starting point for an ambitious series of follow-ups, with the characters reuniting every 10 years to reflect on how their lives had changed. It was a compelling idea, perfectly in keeping with the film's themes of identity and growing up. However, the plan never came to fruition. Tensions between Hughes and key cast members, including Judd Nelson and Molly Ringwald, ultimately derailed the concept. In one of the film's more eccentric visual moments, Ali Sheedy's character creates snow by shaking flakes from her hair. While it might appear to be dandruff on screen, the effect was actually achieved using grated Parmesan cheese. The choice was a practical one, giving the filmmakers a substance that would show up clearly on camera while remaining easy to control during filming. In one memorable scene, the characters are shown sharing a joint, but the production took a practical and safe approach behind the scenes. Rather than using real cannabis, the prop was made with oregano, a harmless herb with no psychoactive effects that you might find on your pizza. And there you have it, folks. You now know a little bit more about The Breakfast Club. If you enjoyed the video, which I presume you did as you got this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos coming to Rocky Watches Movies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.